Hey, all, Snow here. Welcome to another episode of Lazy Gamers Review. On this episode, we're taking a look at the latest entry into the Star Ocean series, Star Ocean: The Divine Force. But before we begin, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. It really does help a lot. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this. Star Ocean: The Divine Force was developed by Tri-Ace and published by Square Enix and is the sixth main entry into the Star Ocean series. You may recognize Tri-Ace as the developers behind such amazing games as Valkyrie Profile, Radiata Stories, and Infinite Undiscovery. They've made some of my favorite RPGs, and Star Ocean series is no different. It's always been one of my favorite games. The series first started in 1996 with Star Ocean for the SNES, which initially never released outside of Japan, and was quickly followed up by Star Ocean: The Second Story for the PS1 in 1998, with a Japan-only direct sequel for the Game Boy Color in 2001 named Star Ocean Blue Sphere. From there, it was another 2 years until Star Ocean Till the End of Time released on the PS2 in 2003. In 2007 and 2008, we saw PSP re-releases of Star Ocean 1 and 2 entitled First Departure and Second Evolution, with the fourth main entry to the series, Star Ocean: The Last Hope, releasing in 2009 as an Xbox 360 exclusive, much to the surprise of everyone, until a year later when it re-released on the PS3. 7 years later, when we finally saw the fifth entry, Star Ocean: Integrity and Faithlessness, for the PS3 and 4. Which brings us to now, 2022, and the release of the sixth game, Star Ocean: The Divine Force, releasing on all major consoles and Steam. There's also been a few failed mobile games, but neither of those lasted very long, even in the native Japanese market. Now, in-game continuity is where things get a little messy. This game takes place 46 years after Star Ocean: Integrity and Faithlessness, so the actual timeline order of the series would be Star Ocean: The Last Hope, Star Ocean 1, Star Ocean: The Second Story, and Star Ocean Blue Sphere, Star Ocean: Integrity and Faithlessness, Star Ocean: The Divine Force, and then at the end, Star Ocean Till the End of Time. That could seem a little bit confusing, but to be honest, the games don't really connect much with each other other than brief mentions of legendary characters from earlier titles, such as the Kenny family. So jumping into this one as one of your first games is perfectly fine. Star Ocean: The Divine Force is an action RPG that continues the series' trend of free-form active battles with no turns. There's no random battles, so you're free to fight as much or as little as you want while exploring the vast world provided by the game. The game follows the story from the point of view of either Raymond Lawrence, the captain of the merchant space vessel Yidis, who crash lands on Aster 4, or Leticia Axaris, the crown princess of the kingdom of Axaris. The choice you make as your main character determines whose inner thoughts and viewpoint you see as the duo try to find Raymond's missing crewmates, save Leticia's kingdom, and of course save the universe. Since there's two main characters, to fully get the story you'll need at least 2 playthroughs, as each character has vastly different outlooks on what's happening, with Raymond of course having advanced technological knowledge, and Leticia being bewildered by suddenly having space-age objects and problems thrust into her life. Now let's talk about characters. First up, we've got the male protagonist, Raymond Lawrence. Ray's the captain of the merchant vessel Yidis and works for his family's company, Lawrence Logistics. His ship is attacked, resulting in him crash landing on the undeveloped planet Aster 4. Raymond is your typical JRPG protagonist with a big heart and overconfident to the point of recklessness when it comes to his friends and work. His weapon is a giant sword, and his playstyle is almost a charged skill-based thing. Next, we have the female lead, Leticia Axaris. Leticia is the crown princess of the kingdom of Axaris, where a good portion of the story takes place. She's a very outwardly confident and happy person and tends to trust people easily. She's extremely skilled in fighting with her dual blades, and more importantly, actually wears proper armor for a warrior. Other than the two main characters, we have Elena, Raymond's second in command, Albert, Leticia's faithful knight and childhood friend, Nina, the cheerful healer, Midas, the ornery hermit engineer, Malkia, the wise leader of the Trothan people, Marielle, the dutiful lieutenant, Theo, the knight commander of the Asheran Navy, and JJ, a mechanized swordsman. The battle system for Star Ocean has always been a turnless or semi-turnless action battle system where you physically run around the battle area and fight with skills assigned to the buttons on the controller. Some iterations of this had menu systems for casting spells or using items, but the Divine Force goes all in on the next logical evolution of that type of system by making it fully into an action RPG. You assign skills to 3 buttons and can customize a chain combo where it uses the assigned skills in succession on button press, or you could assign it to use charged stronger versions of skills or spells whenever you hold down the button. There's no random battles, and it transitions seamlessly from running up onto a group of enemies and starting the fight. Escaping from battle is as easy as running out of the highlighted area on the minimap, which will reset the enemies back to where they were and resurrect any dead characters. While handy to have, this unfortunately makes it easy to cheese out some optional mini-bosses since their HP doesn't reset back to full when you escape battle. Meaning you can open the fight with a blindside stun, unload all your damage, and then run away to reset and repeat that tactic. The unique thing they added to this entry is D.U.M.A. Outside of battle, this device allows you short-range flight as well as slow fall, and depending on your equip skill, either treasure radar or quieter footsteps. In battle, the skills you assign to D.U.M.A can do various things such as increase your VA gauge faster based on dodges or attacks, increase the speed you charge your vatting skill, which is basically this game's limit breaks, or reduce the amount of gauge it costs to block using D.U.M.A. The biggest detriment to the battle system in this game by far is the game's lock-on camera. As you can see to the video to my side here, it's absolute garbage. It'll randomly whip your camera around as you're running around the battlefield, completely messing with your movement, and it could even screw you up if the enemy you're locked onto happens to jump or fly around a lot. A few bosses and mini boss fights are absolutely ruined by just how bad this camera is. It's very easy to end up over-leveled in this game as well. If you don't use fast travel so you can hear all the side chatter between characters as you go between destinations, you can easily find yourself 3 to 5 levels above what's generally expected. That's not to say fast travel is bad or will keep you underleveled though. The way they have EXP scaled makes it quite easy to play catch up with a character. I've found a few situations where my characters were clearly much weaker than what they should have been, but then within 4 to 5 fights against enemies on that map, I'd gotten enough levels to where they died much faster and even felt like I was over-leveled. Speaking of leveling, let's talk about the skill system. In Divine Force, you of course have your generic leveling system, and as you level up you gain skill points, which you can then spend on unlocking new skills, passive abilities, spells, or stat boosts for your character. The skill tree reminds me a bit of an ARPG such as Path of Exile, where you're given a bit more freedom to customize your character however you like by picking and choosing what exactly you want. Each character can then equip up to 3 passive abilities and assign a chain of up to 3 skills and items to a single button. Boss fights in this game feel very few and far between. I'm personally not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing since boss fights in the series were always kinda big deals. In this entry, to be honest, they felt super lackluster. While I haven't reached post-game yet since at the time of writing the script for this review I was only a little over halfway done, every boss I've gone up against has felt extremely bland and to be honest, boring with how easy it was even with minimal work leveling up or skilling up. Honestly, the only thing to me that differentiated the bosses from normal enemies was the amount of HP they had and how hard they hit. Outside of that, they just felt like fighting any other enemy. Star Ocean: The Divine Force's story follows a similar format to most of the other games. Main character is from space and crash lands on an undeveloped planet. They have a momentary panic about how they're going to get back into space without interacting too much with the inhabitants since it's outlawed to do so. Then they end up embroiled in some grand conspiracy, usually involving another party from space coming to the planet to screw things up. Eventually, this battle between groups moves into space and they save the universe. The end. Despite how generic I just described it, it's actually written quite well, with the writing doing a good job making you actually care about the people of this planet, as well as becoming invested in the various character arcs. All the dialogue is pretty well written and none of it really feels out of place. While playing the game, I found myself losing hours of time, which is something an RPG simply just hasn't done for me in quite a long time. This time around they added a minigame that's kind of like a hybrid of chess and a typical JRPG card game called ESOA. You obtain pieces of various classes that have different effects when placed on the board. You then take turns placing these pieces on the board, slowly building up your army's strength to deplete the HP of your opponent to 0. It's complex enough to not get boring, but simple enough to where you don't need a PhD to play. It's incredibly fun, and I find myself occasionally just playing random people for long stretches of time. Each time you win against someone new, you gain a little money as well as an ESOA piece, and lose nothing on a loss. There's a ranking system, but outside of achievements, I don't believe it has an effect on the game. As an added bonus, the pieces for ESOA double as accessories that are, to be honest, borderline broken. The special pieces are all characters from previous games and have stats on them such as attack plus 30% or plus 40% damage to humanoids, etc. As of yet, I've found no reason to use any accessories outside of these special pieces. However, that might change once I start working more with synthesis, since they can be used as fodder to move those bonuses to other things. Item creation, of course, makes a return in Divine Force. You have the usual creation categories: compounding, crafting, smithery, engineering, alchemy, authoring, and synthesis. Compounding is for making healing items, crafting for accessories, cloth armor, and a few weapons. Smithery makes a few weapons and metal-based armors. Engineering is used for making advanced tech weapons or bombs. Alchemy is for upgrading metals to a higher tier. Authoring can make usable spell items or compounding recipes. And of course, synthesis is for making absolutely bonkers broken gear for your characters by letting you transfer bonus stats from one item to another. Crafting is a little dumbed down from some of the other games and is a simple select materials make item loop. Certain materials have better chances at creating high-end items or gear, but at its core it's super easy to understand. Synthesis is the only part of crafting that gets a little more complex. The basics of synthesis are you pick a base item, which is what you ultimately want to put the bonus stats on, then select a fodder item. You then lose the fodder item and transfer the bonuses to the base item, making it better. It can be quite time consuming, but becomes a necessary task in the endgame and higher difficulties. Overall, I'm really enjoying the item creation in the game. The music in Star Ocean: The Divine Force was composed by longtime series composer Motoi Sakuraba. He's one of the founding members of Tri-Ace, and in addition to composing the music for the rest of the Star Ocean series, he's also worked on music from the Dark Souls franchise, Golden Sun, the Tales of series, Mario Tennis, and Mario Golf. He's even composed a few songs for the Guitar Freaks, Drum Mania, Gitadora rhythm game series. Let's go ahead and listen to a few tracks from the game and you can hear for yourself. The soundtrack for this game doesn't disappoint. It's beautifully done and it's a good mix between calm ambient music and hard orchestral arrangements. Sakuraba did a very good job making music fit the different environments and encounters in the game. It's good enough that I didn't find myself muting the music after a few hours in the game like I do with quite a few other titles these days. The Japanese voice acting in this game is phenomenal. All the voices fit with how the characters are designed, and I haven't really had any moments where I was like, there's no way that character should sound like that. Headlined by Saburo Kimura, who's the voice of Aoi Todo from Jujutsu Kaisen as Raymond, and Inori Minase, who's the voice of Rem from ReZero as Leticia, the voice cast is absolutely amazing. They all do a great job bringing emotion to all their lines. I was completely blown away by how good the voice acting was. The English voice acting, however, in my opinion, is just not even remotely as good. Headlined by Mark Whitten, the English voice of Kurojiro Rengoku from Demon Slayer as Raymond, and Danielle Judovich, the English voice of Tenten from Naruto as Leticia, it mostly felt like the English voice cast was done as an afterthought. In my personal opinion, none of the English voices really fit with the characters they played, and though it could just be the localization and rewriting of things, the vocal delivery on a lot of lines just felt off. Unless you absolutely cannot stand reading subtitles, I highly recommend playing with the Japanese voices over the English ones. Graphics in the game are great, not god tier amazing, but not bad. They're well above average. The maps are well designed and the skybox is actually dynamic, changing as time goes on. The game on visual focus mode on PS5 seems to run at a consistent 30 FPS with occasional dips on certain maps, but still remains playable. If you change it to performance mode, you get 60 FPS with a minimal downgrade in visuals. I personally didn't have any issues with the 30 FPS of visual focus mode, but I'm also not someone who obsesses over frame rates despite primarily being a PC game player. Load times are near instant, with the longest wait I've encountered being 5 seconds. Not a whole lot to say on that matter. As is the standard with Star Ocean games, this time around we have multiple endings. Well, kind of. It appears there's one main ending and then various character endings depending on if you max out affection for a character via private actions or a certain item. Given that there's 2 main characters and 8 potential pairings for each, you're looking at around 16 endings. This doesn't mean you'll need to play through 16 times though, since you can manipulate affection with characters via items and you can have multiple save files to reload and try to get a different pairing. So at a minimum, you're looking at 2 playthroughs, providing you want to see all the pairings and see all the story bits from the other main character's point of view. Then there's also the hidden difficulty setting of Chaos, which only unlocks after beating the game on Universe difficulty, which is the hard mode of the game. On top of that, the max level is 255 and there's post-game content, but unfortunately no New Game Plus. Overall, I'd say there's above average replayability. Star Ocean: The Divine Force is a wonderful addition to the franchise and in my opinion easily the best entry since Second Story. The battle system taking its natural evolution to full-fledged action RPG felt really good, and the weapon skills were quite fun. The music was phenomenal and the voice work was all extremely well done. There are a few minor hiccups in terms of graphics and UI readability, with the text being nearly unreadable on large 4K TVs with no option to adjust the size, and targeting, as I said earlier, is absolute ass. The frame dips, while few and far between, are quite jarring and can momentarily ruin immersion, and the frame rate junkies will no doubt be disappointed in the game's native frame rates. I've also heard there's some pretty bad performance issues on various hardware on PC, but I can't personally confirm that, so that might be something you want to keep in mind. The 6-year wait, or 13-year wait if you try and pretend integrity and faithlessness doesn't exist, was well worth it, as the Divine Force does a great job bringing light back to this franchise. At the end of the day, I give Star Ocean: The Divine Force a rather solid 8 out of 10. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this review. If you want to see more, please like and subscribe. It really does help. If you want to see another review, I did review Gundam Evolution. The link will be somewhere in this area. But anyways, I don't know what I'm going to review next. We'll see. Till then, have a good one.